Good morning, Kentucky, and welcome to another wonderful Monday morning Food Connection live stream cooking demo. Today's guest chef is Bethany Prekopa, and we are very excited to have her because she is a Food Connection student worker alumni and a fabulous chef in her own right. So we're gonna talk to her now. Hi, Bethany.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited to cook. I'm a little nervous. This is like things that I've done in my head. I've done cooking shows in my head since I was like 10, but this is a real one, so I'm
Yeah,
excited.
it's a different experience.
It's very
Yeah.
weird being on
So,
this side of the camera because usually I'm like the one I'm talking with you or I'm backstage or something. So it's weird to be like in the
mhm.
cooking and Chef T's aspect.
You're doing great so far. Okay, so first, would you tell us a bit about what you did at the Food Connection in your capacity?
Yeah, so in 2019, which was my junior year, I started at the Food Connection as a student worker, student chef. And as you know, since you and I were coworkers, you basically it was the best job. You get to help out with cooking classes. You get to help out with events because we would do catered events, and there would be times where we would stay until like 9:30 p.m. just prepping for the next day. We did First Friday breakfasts. It was just really great. It was a great experience just to be able to cook as my job. So like we would go in between classes and I would chop up some vegetables and be covered in flour and then sprint to my next class, always
Yes,
smelling like food. So
exactly.
yeah, yeah. So I did that to start, and then I did kind of a kitchen manager role, I guess, and basically just helped out Chef T and Dr. Brislin a little bit, and was able to work with you all so that Chef T could do more stuff in the back. So I
Yeah.
basically stayed in the same role, but it was really lovely. And I wish I had found the Food Connection before I did, so that I could have worked a full 4 years. But I'm just glad I found it when I did.
Yeah, it was wonderful to work with you. We miss you a lot, but we're very excited for what you're doing next. So you graduated this spring, in the spring of 2020, perhaps the most unusual graduation year in the history of ever, but you
Oh,
did it,
yes.
and we're so proud of you. Do you have a favorite memory from your time working at the Food Connection?
Oh, gosh. Every time that I worked, there was something that happened. Probably when we would be all together and it would be like cleanup time, and all we wanted to do would be to go home. But at the same time, we were kind of delirious most times. So we would have like our Spotify going, but we would also be like yelling at each other, like joking around. It was just the best. Like it was,
Yeah.
there was no better kind of bonding than when we all had to like slave away and mop the floors or sweep the floors and get the gunk off of the grill and all that. So just, it was lovely.
Sometimes the most fun is when things go wrong and we have to improvise to fix them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're all like making weird noises, trying to figure out what we're like supposed to do. And yeah, but it was just great.
Wonderful. So, will you tell us about what you're doing now?
Yeah. So, like you said, I graduated in May, and very weird time. Kind of one of those things where you're like just praying that things work out. Because I put a lot of pressure on myself, feeling like I needed to have a job right away. And Dr. Brislin sent me a few jobs. She was like, I think you might be interested in a few of these, but just let me know. And one I was extremely interested in, did a Zoom interview for, and prayers answered, things worked out. So I am the direct marketing program manager for Kentucky Horticulture Council. I started 2.5 weeks ago, and it has been amazing. It's been like the best thing I could imagine coming from Food Connection. So I basically, past 2 weeks, especially with Farmers Market Week last week, I've been traveling all over the state, going to farmers markets. Um, Starting this week, I'll be doing like agritourism, farms and venues and that kind of thing, especially I'm trying to figure out what we're going to do in the fall now with how crazy everything is. So my role is basically to help be there and market for farmers, for like horticulture, venues, farmers, flowers, and agritourism. And especially with everything that's been happening, I think there's been a huge shift towards local and farmers markets, and it's been really great. I mean, there are some markets that are up like 2,000%. And that's been awesome. But it's like, how do we keep that momentum going once Kroger shelves start filling up again? Once
Mm-hmm.
farmers markets aren't the only option. So I'm really excited. I'm
Well,
excited
that's
to see where it takes
wonderful.
me.
The Kentucky Horticultural Council is very lucky to have someone like you.
Thank
Um,
you.
so if people want to find you, they should probably go to their local farmers market and just sit there until you show up because you will be there
Yes.
eventually.
Yes.
All right. In addition to that, you also have a sort of side project, passion project called Imperfectly Plated. Will you tell us about that?
Yeah, so it's definitely my like side passion project. I started Imperfectly Plated basically as a way so that I could one keep track of like things that I make or develop eventually. And I started it with the premise of like I don't really necessarily care if anyone reads this. It's kind of for myself, which has been really great because I am not someone that like does well with like the numbers and feeling like I have to like do this, do this. So it's been really nice. It's I try and usually put something out every Sunday. I didn't this week just because it was crazy. I did like 800 miles traveling last week. But
Wow.
yeah, so it's just, they've all been like fun recipes that I really love to cook or have really expanded my horizon because I cook dinner for myself or my family. I make myself food all the time, but I never really like sit down and hunt for recipes. So it's nice to make puff pastry when I wouldn't usually do that on a Tuesday. And it's been nice, like I get to take pictures of it, and it's just very fun. Like that's been my main thing. And the minute it stops being fun, I won't do it. But it's just been really nice,
Yeah.
and I get to
I've been
feed
really
everyone.
enjoying Yeah, I've been really enjoying reading along to your different recipe ideas on your blog, which is imperfectlyplated.com, right?
Yes,
Yes, and you have wonderful food photos on your Instagram account as well, imperfectly plated. So people
thank you.
should check that out for more information. Um, so onto our recipe cooking demo. Tell us about what you're making, and I will let you take over.
Okay. Um, so, with the complete abundance of vegetables that we have right now, it is about ratatouille time. So, we're going to be making ratatouille with a homemade ricotta and a type of beer bread. So, I'm just going to preface this one. This is nothing like Brian Brady's bread. He made a beautiful, like impeccable focaccia a couple weeks ago. And over quarantine, I have made lots of bread, but I have not taken the time to make like sourdough starter or any of that. I'm more of like I need carbs right now, so I'm going to make a really quick bread. So this has a bottle of beer in it, but a preface to that as well is that you don't have to do beer. You could do a seltzer as a replacement. I just kind of like the flavor that beer imparts on this bread. But yeah, I just wanted you to know that this is not going to be like the light and airy and doughy bread. It's very delicious, but it's very different. So I think we will actually start with the bread. I have a few of the different stages of it, but I can show you how to start it. So I'm going to grab my ingredients. Okay. So what I have here is 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I have 2 teaspoons of yeast and 2 teaspoons of kosher salt. So in the Food Connection kitchen, the only salt that we use is kosher, and that has deeply affected me because now any other salt, especially iodized, is like forbidden in my house. So I also have 3 cups of just all-purpose flour here, and then no branding, but 1 bottle of beer. Okay, so I'm gonna grab my bowl. And basically, this is probably one of the easiest bread recipes you can make. Okay, so you put your 3 cups of flour in your bowl. Okay, make sure you get all of it. One of the really important things when you're baking, like Brian was talking about in his bread demo, if you're really going to get into baking, you need a scale. If you're not going to get a scale, one of the really important things for flour is not to just take your measuring cup and dip into it. You really need to use a spoon or some kind of way to get it in, level it off, and then put it in, because if you just dip it in, it compacts and you're going to get a completely different measurement than what you're hoping for. Okay, so I have my 3 cups here. I'm going to add in my 2 teaspoons of yeast and my 2 teaspoons of salt. Okay, and then you don't have to use your fingers for this, but I don't like dirtying all the extra stuff. So you just kind of mix that in a little bit. Super easy. Okay, then you put your 2 tablespoons of olive oil in. Okay, and then you take your beer or your seltzer. It doesn't matter what kind of beer you use. I wouldn't use one that you believe tastes very watery. But if you are going to use beer, just something that you like the flavor of, all of the alcohol bakes out of this. So you don't have to worry about that. But when I started making this, I only had Heineken. So that's been my go-to since. Okay, so it gets really bubbly. You poured the full 12 fluid ounces. Yes, 12 fluid ounces in. And then you can grab your spatula or a wooden spoon. It can be really good too if you have that. You're just going to mix this until it's combined. You don't want to overmix it because you will get like a slightly more flat bread, but it's still going to taste good. I've overmixed this a few times, and it's still really delicious. Once again, this is just not one that you get like the super airy, fluffy bread, and that's okay. Okay. Yeah, so really, it might look a little clumpy. That's okay. You just really want to make sure you don't have any fresh of like the flour showing up. See, like I don't know if you can tell, I still have like really big clumps there. So I just want to make sure I get that really worked in. This smells so good. Okay. So we're getting there. And then take a look at it too once all of your flour is mixed in. You might need to add just a little bit more flour. You don't want this to be too loose when you cover it and let it rise a little bit. You don't want to be able to like pour it out. It's kind of, you're going to still get the bubbles. It's just, once again, you're probably going to get a more flat bread. Yeah, so mine's a little bit loose. I'm just going to add a touch. Always start with less because you can always add. You can never take back. I've learned that, unfortunately, with pizza dough. So, yeah, just do a little bit, work it in, see how that looks. Yeah, you want to be able to see it kind of not necessarily pull away from your bowl, but you want to be able to see the gluten stretching. Okay, yeah, so we're getting there. Yeah, that's about perfect. So I don't know if you can see that. Okay, so I'm going to cover this with some cling wrap and then it doesn't necessarily have to be in a warm spot. I put mine next to my oven because The key part here, you have to heat your oven to 450, which my oven takes a while to do that. And then once it gets to 450, you put your Dutch oven that you're going to be cooking it in there for 30 minutes. So your oven's already going to be warm. So I like to cover this and put it next to it. And I'll put it to the side. Okay. So I started one earlier, and I can show you guys this. So definitely not like, we're just going to take it. Definitely not pourable. But you can see she's got some nice bubbles. Yeah. So you let this rise for an hour, 2 hours. You could do it overnight even if you wanted to. It's really up to you and how much time. Typically, I've done like the hour just because usually I'm really hungry when I make this. But you just want to make sure that it about doubles in size at least. So I'm going to put that to the side. Okay. So I can show you all the start of the ratatouille. So I've gotten flour all over my cutting board. But the ricotta is really easy. It's literally 3 ingredients. So we can get to that in a little bit. So first we're going to start off with 1 onion. So this recipe should be on the Food Connection website. And we can post that later. And same with, I'll post the bread and the ricotta. Okay, so you take both ends off of your onion and you grip your knife. This is what I learned from Chef T. You take your knife and you grab with your pointer and your thumb and then wrap the rest of them with it and kind of grip that tightly because then you have the most control. So you go straight down the center. The only time that we at the Food Connection cut along the equator is when we're making onion rings. So it's another thing. If you ever question which way you should cut your onion. Okay, so I'm going to take off the little hairy bits and skin. If you ever have a layer that just doesn't look right, go ahead and take that off. Better to just get it all off. I got these onions at Stonehenge, the farmer's market this weekend. They have a huge selection of like anything you could ever think of. Anything you can get at Kroger. Just crazy. They're the ones that had the 12 different kinds of squash varieties. And so I got to choose. I chose 2 of those that were like the most recognizable. Okay. So take your onion and you're going to pull it to the end of your board. I'm going to do it. I'll show you in a minute. And then you're going to make 2 incisions. Now just be super careful with this. Better safe than sorry. And then you want to leave about an inch. I can show you. You want to leave about an inch here at the top. So you're going to make another one. Once again, being really careful. Okay, so you have 3 sections. Okay. And then you're going to make your lines. So this ratatouille, if you do it the typical French way, is not very forgiving, I guess. My way is a bit more rustic and forgiving. So you're going to be dicing this onion. You don't want huge chunks of onion, but this is not a perfect dice. So get your wildcat claw to protect your hands. And you're just going to do a quick little dice on that. When you get to that 1 inch, don't worry about it. We'll be able to get through that really easily. Okay, so I'm going to find a bowl, put this in. There's a slight bit of flour on mine just because I'm a bit messy, but I do like for it to be clean. So on this 2-inch bit or 1-inch bit, you can just slice it and then just kind of do your knife through it. I don't know if this is the official way you're supposed to do it. This is the way that I have always done it. You're not trying to get a full like restaurant mince. You're just trying to not have big chunks. Okay. And then we're going to do that with the other half. I know other chefs do it differently. I was taught to use the back of your knife when you're scraping up just because you don't want it extra dull. And I feel safer with it. That's just me. I don't like having to sharpen my knives all the time. And I honestly don't know if that makes the biggest difference, but the chef I learned from a cooking class said just always use the back of your knife. Okay, so more of those cuts. And you get a nice, pretty even dice with this. I hope I'm cutting wrong. Okay, and then your little 2-inch bit. Okay. Looking good. Just make sure you don't have any big chunks. It'll cook down, but okay. So next, we're gonna do the peppers because in order of how you put these in your pan, you're gonna go with the ones that have like the most water. So we're gonna go like onions, peppers. So we'll get those. So these are also from Stonehenge, and these are so beautiful. This one's a little yellow and purple. It was a little bit more purple when I got it on Saturday. And then this one is a red and purple mix with a little bit of yellow. They look gorgeous. So unfortunately, when these get cooked, if you were to eat these raw, they would obviously save their color. But unfortunately, when you cook them, they're going to just get to their like green color, or in this case, it's just gonna be red. But they're really beautiful, and if I were to have anything that I needed them raw in, like a salad, these are gorgeous to use. So I cut the top off. I like to pop out the little stem because we're not gonna waste this top. And then I cut the bottom. One of the things that Chef T always pushes for us and in her classes is just you want to get your vegetables in like the most stable position. So like it's not really easy to just cut this if you don't have something stable. So you do that, then you make a little incision and you're going to cut away from yourself, cut out the pods. So I'll show the camera. Always protecting yourself, your hands. No dish or anything is worth losing your fingers. Okay. So then you just pop out the seed pocket. Don't any of those seeds. Okay.
Bethany, we had a few buffering challenges, so we missed a little bit. But just to review, you've cut off the top and the bottom of the pepper and then made a slice through the middle so that you could unroll it and remove the pith.
Yes.
Awesome.
I can show the inside of the other one too. So when you get this all rolled out, it can be kind of wonky. I like cutting mine into like thirds, depending on how big it is, and then you hit it down, get a stable surface. So you just cut, you're dicing this as well, so just cut into thin strips. And then you're going to make a nice little mountain of your sticks. And just dice through that. So nice. These smell amazing. Okay. I'm going to put those actually in a separate container. just because we're going to cook the onions down a little bit more than we're going to cook the peppers. So do the same thing with this. Build a little mountain. You're kind of wanting all around the same kind of bite-sized pieces. So just keep that in mind. But that's one of the things that I struggle with, is keeping all of it relatively the same size. So I think I do better if I tell myself that I don't need to keep it the same size. So if you're like me, go ahead and do that. Okay. So like I said, we are not going to waste these little bits. So you just do the exact same thing of what you did on like the actual meat of it. So you just slice through it. Some of these are like little bottoms are so small, so you don't need to really even slice through those unless they're a big chunk. Build a little mountain. And just go through it. Okay. So I'm actually not going to cut this one. Actually, I'll cut into it and I'll show you what I was talking about when I was laggy. Okay. Okay. So I made an incision like that. And then cutting away from myself, I cut the pit out. So once you do that, you can pull this out very easily, pop it out. I'm going to put this to the side for later for myself. Okay, breaking down this beautiful eggplant. This is also from Stonehenge. So you break the top off, the bottom, go down the middle, and then you could do this the way that you do an onion, where you make the incision, so we'll do that. This is a bit more to go through, but personally I think it's easier than an onion. So I made the same 2 incisions. Depending on how thick yours is, you might be able to do another one. You make your slices down the center, and then just go through. So nice. Then you have these nice dice on your eggplant. So we'll put that in a bowl. Okay. Beautiful. Same with the onion. When you have the 1-inch end here, you can kind of just go through and then do your dice. Try and keep it from going everywhere like how mine does. My golden retriever loves when I cook because there are always traps on the floor. Okay, so get that. Get your big bits that didn't quite get cut all the way through. And put those in. I think because I'm only making food for myself and my fiance and potentially my mother, I'm not going to do the full 2 eggplant that are on the recipe. So I'm going to just get that out of the way. Okay, I'm going to show you the squash. So I got this squash and zucchini from Stonehenge. And for these, really nice, cut the top off, cut the bottom off, and we're going to do slices. Now for this squash, this is perfectly fine to do that. For the zucchini, you have a slightly bigger round, so I'm going to cut those actually in half moons, but you're going to do You're not looking for paper thin, so no worries about that. Whoop. So that's what you get with the squash. You can do half moons for that size as well, especially on the bigger ends, but when you get getting towards the top, they're really small, so you don't have to worry about that. Okay. And then, now I've washed all of this before. Definitely during this time, make sure that you wash your produce when you get home. I'm usually covered in dirt anyway, but make sure during this time that you're doing that. So yeah, so I did half moons for these. I like that. Switch it up the texture, and it just has a prettier look to it, and it's so much easier for eating compared to this and the cook time. So we're going to do a little bit of that. It's easier when you can just stack them up like that. A little bit of that. Okay. Get these out of the way. One of my all-time favorite things. I'm going to do some garlic. Okay, so I've popped these off the clove. Pop these off the head. So I have 2 cloves here. And that's one of the best ways. I don't have any of those like make it easier roller things. If that works for you, that's awesome. Whatever means you like. I like just taking my frustration out through that. So cut the woody ends off. Okay. And then the way to mince garlic is you're going to use your wildcat claw still. Do some slices. Super nice. And then just move that all restaurant chefs talk about, and celebrity chefs and everything, the one that makes you look super cool. You are just going to take your knife with your hand on top, protecting it, and just go through this garlic. I don't know if you can see that. Just go through your garlic. You don't want any big chunks. If you continue to do this, you can form a paste, add a little bit of salt, which draws out the oils. But we don't need that today. We just need a mince. Okay, so I like that. I don't need a very fine mince, so I'm pretty happy with how that turned out. Okay, and then the last piece of the ratatouille is the tomatoes. Let me get this off my board. If you're not a garlic fan, you can do one clove or no cloves, but I think that is blasphemy. I love garlic. So garlic and onions are basically the base of every meal that I have or make. Okay, so I got some orange and red tomatoes, and they're definitely on the riper side, which is okay. I like stewing down my ratatouille. So having it really juicy, having it kind of mushier is actually okay. But these are super beautiful. I got these from Rough Draft. They have so many tomatoes right now. And yeah, they're beautiful. So I like having the mix of colors because it just looks so beautiful. So go down the center. You cut, I'll show you, you cut in like almost an X and get out your core. And basically, these are so soft that you kind of just want to get some kind of cut into them. You're not necessarily, even with like your really sharp knife, you're not necessarily going to get the finest of dice. But yeah, there's that. You're going to want to not tip your board and get rid of all these lovely juices and seeds and gel, because I learned from Chef Tanya, and she had learned the most flavor is actually in the gel of the tomato. So we're going to do the same with that. Do my eggs again. And these are just, I mean, like dripping all over the board. So these are really ready to be cooked. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. Okay. So we're going to get this started. So I will bring you around. Okay. So you're going to start your Dutch oven or pot. I only have one Dutch oven, and we're using that for the bread. So you're going to want that on medium high heat. And you want to get a little bit warm, and then add in some olive oil. I measure this with my heart. I never really measure that unless it's like in the bread. So you want to cover your bottom because you're going to be cooking your onions. And you want to wait until your olive oil gets a little shimmery. We like to say a mirage on a hot day. That's what we like to say. So you want it to get just a little shimmer. And then you're going to throw in your onions. So that's a good sound. You want to hear that. It's when you know that you have okay. So we're going to let those cook a little bit. You turn them a little bit more medium than medium high. Oh, it smells good already. Okay. While that is going, I will show you the process for ricotta. So I have 1 pint of cream and 1 pint of whole milk in this. So my recipe that I make all the time does a quart, but that's a lot of ricotta for me unless I'm making like a pasta dish. So I like to just half it, and so I have a pint of each. I'm going to put that in the saute pan, and you're going to want to put that on medium and really keep an eye on it. You're just looking for that to get a simmer. Take this and just kind of keep an eye on it. When that starts to get a little frothy, I'll show you. Okay. So, oh, these onions smell delicious. You're looking for these to cook probably like 5 minutes. You're wanting them to get a little bit of color, a little bit translucent, expel some of their water. Oh my gosh, yum. Okay. Yeah, anytime that you are heating dairy, you want to be so very careful because that can burn on the bottom and just turns bad very fast. If my sister is listening, I have been traumatized about burned milk because my sister came back from France and tried to replicate a dish that she had, and it was some kind of milky soup and burned the goodness out of it. But the top still looked fine, and I was so picky then that I didn't even try it, but we have not let her live it down ever. So now I'm like, okay, anytime that I'm heating some milk, whether it's for like ganache or when I'm making this ricotta, I'm like, okay, I cannot pull a gel move. I cannot burn this. Okay. So my onions are looking pretty good. We're going to add in the peppers now because that's also going to expel a lot of water. And you don't want these to get like too soft. You just want them to get a little bit soft. It's probably going to be a 3 minutes kind of thing. Beautiful, beautiful. Peppers and onions. So good. Okay. So I never put my milk on high, like all power, max power high. But I turned it up just a little bit. It smells so good. Okay. So the peppers are going to go a little bit more, but we're going to grab our eggplant, our squash, and pop that in. Give that a quick stir. We're going to also toss in our garlic. Now you don't put garlic and onions in together because the garlic will burn. The onions have water in them and the garlic has that oil, and the oil will just completely scorch. And also you have much smaller pieces with garlic than you do with onions. Have to take that into account. So, oh, that smells delightful. So doing that, keeping an eye on my cream and milk mixture. Definitely getting warm, but not to a simmer. Okay. So we're going to let this cook just a little bit. Oh my gosh, it smells delicious. I didn't eat breakfast this morning, which is always my problem when I help post these. I'm always on the other side. But I think it's even worse smelling it and being hungry. Yeah, at least I couldn't smell it when I was behind the camera. You just let that break down for a little bit. Let me check on you. I feel like it's a very fine line between scorching your milk and having it be ready. So we have that going. Okay. For time's sake, I'm going to throw in my tomatoes. And get these and all their juices going. So I'm going to take my cutting board and make sure that I get all of the seeds and gel and water and get all of that goodness. Okay. So you can let this go. This is the fun thing about ratatouille is you can let this go for anywhere from like 15 minutes to an hour and a half. You are going to get much more tender, much more stewy vegetables if you let it go for longer. So I'm going to let that go for a little bit. I have some I made already that I can show as well. Oh man, this is gorgeous. I'm going to bring the camera with me. I'm going to show you. That is one I made this morning. And it has stewed down. It looks amazing. One thing you're also going to want to do is add some salt. Salt's another thing that you can add, but you cannot take away. But at the same time, a lot of things are undersalted. So you want to make sure that you're properly seasoning all of your vegetables. Yum. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Yeah, that cooked down so much. And that orange and the tomato is amazing. Beautiful. Okay, so we are getting there with our milk. I see it starting to kind of form a film. Definitely getting very warm. So what we're doing is we're going to be adding some kind of acid. So typically I like to use white wine vinegar for this. I think it has a really nice flavor. I'm using lemon juice today because most people have lemon juice on hand, whether it's fresh lemon squeezed or in your fridge. Ooh, we're getting there with the ricotta. Okay. Yeah. So, ooh, it's steaming. It's about to start simmering, I can tell. Yeah, so since I did the pint instead of the quart, I only did 1 tablespoon of my acid. Oh yeah, we're definitely in there. Okay. So we're gonna let it go just a little bit more, and I will show you guys. So while the ratatouille cooks down, I will show everyone the bread. So I have already cooked up some bread, but I will show you the process of what happens once you have let it rise a little bit. So I'm going to grab that dough from earlier. What you are going to want to do is take a little bit of flour and definitely spread it out while also keeping an eye on your ricotta. Ricotta is really nice to just make and then have in your fridge. Okay, so I'm going to take this dough. Oh my gosh, and look at all of that. Look at the bubbles in that. So beautiful. I'm going to grab my dough scraper, stir my cream mixture. Okay. Grab my dough scraper. These are really handy. I like having the plastic ones because you can bend them. I do like the metal ones as well, though, but it's completely your preference. And get all of that out. Bubbly goodness. Okay. Let that hang out for a second. I'm going to add the lemon juice to my cream mixture and stir it. So what you're doing is you are breaking it down. This is going to continue to simmer until you start to see curds form. Now I'll show you that, but I'm going to do this. This is a little bit of a looser dough that I made earlier. It's like I was showing when I made it. You definitely can add more flour to it and get it a little bit more stiff. Ooh, you can already see curds forming. Okay, so what you're gonna do is you are basically taking this, adding in some flour if it's really sticky, using your dough scraper a lot. You're gonna knead it a little bit, and then you're gonna form it into a ball, and we're gonna put it on some parchment into our warm Dutch oven. So like I said, your Dutch oven will have been heating for 30 minutes. Plop it into that, and it cooks for 30 minutes covered and 15 minutes uncovered. That's to get the crispy crust on it. Okay, so let's see. Oh, perfect. Okay, so let me show you what you're going to be looking for when you make this ricotta. Technology, my favorite. Okay, so your mixture is going to get thicker, and then you are going to be looking for that. That is small little curds forming. Once you get to that point, it will start to look like very, very liquidy ricotta. So it simmers like that. Take it off the heat, and you let it cool for 30 minutes just so that it is more manageable when you are putting it through the cheesecloth. So it's ready at this point. It just needs to cool. So you take your dough, you get your parchment, I like to put a little bit of flour on my parchment. You're not going to have a problem getting it off of this, but the dough or the bench scraper very much helps with this entire process. Okay, so you get that. I like having someone help me with this part just because it's nice to have someone hold the Dutch oven. But you do that, you do that, you make sure that it looks beautiful, and then grab your Dutch oven. I have dough all over my hands. You grab your Dutch oven out of the oven. You pull it out. Ooh. And you just take this and you put it directly in. Super simple. Put your top back on. Remember that it is warm. Put it in. And then, like I said, at 450, you're cooking it for 15 minutes or 30 minutes with the top on. Once that passes, take your top off. Let it crisp up for 15 minutes or maybe a little bit longer. Just keep an eye on it. So I'm going to set my timer. Okay. Then we can just start plating this area up. So that ratatouille, like I said, depending on what you want, at this point, you're definitely having like where your fork can go through your vegetables. So it's going to be really delicious at this point. I personally like stewing it down more. I'm going to wash my hands. Since I have been cooking for a while, have no fingertips. So I will not have any problem doing this ricotta. But like I said, definitely let it hang out for 20 minutes. It definitely helps the formation, but it also just lets it cool down. But I will show you my process. So I usually do this over the sink, but I get cheesecloth. You can get this at Kroger, Target, really anywhere, and line a strainer. And then for this purpose, I'm going to put it in this bowl. So you grab your ricotta. Mine's still really warm, so just be careful of that. And then you just slowly pour it into your cheesecloth. And you can see all the nice curds I have in there. Okay. Beautiful. Okay. Yeah, so you can see the liquid starting to come through. You take all your ends. Now, some people like to save some of their liquid. I like my ricotta to be a bit more dry, or not dry, but not as liquidy, especially if I'm using it for something like this, where I like it to have a little bit more integrity. So, depends how much liquid you want to have, but I like to squeeze mine out. Don't squeeze it too much because you will lose some of the ricotta. But I let it do that a little bit. Once it starts dripping or stops dripping, I put it in that, and then you scrape it out of the cheesecloth. Put this to the side. Okay, so I'll show you. So my ratatouille got so very stewy. I need something that's not like that. You have all your fresh vegetables. Put that in. I like all the liquid with it. It's really nice. Oh, gorgeous. Okay. I also have some bread. So I will show you this. So this one turned out much flatter because I did have a really wet dough. I was in a bit of a hurry, so that can happen. But it's going to taste just the same, and it's going to be super delicious. So I'll show you that. I'm going to slice this up. So you still have some air pockets. I'm going to put that with that. And then we're going to get a little bit of our ricotta. So this is as easy and rustic as you want to make it. Or you can really fancy this up. Like I said, I'm much more of a rustic, undone, and perfectly plated, if you will. I'm going to try and get a little bit more out of this ricotta. There we go. Okay. So because she's really warm, she's melting. But if you let this go and cool completely, you have a really, really nice ricotta. Okay. So let me wash my hands. Okay. So this is super easy. I really like making this. It's really nice to use up a lot of the vegetables that you have, and it's just really delicious. You can add any flavor that you want to it. It's really nice to throw in some basil or to top it with some olives. I like fresh parsley on this. It's really delicious and really beautiful, and it looks really fancy. So that's my do. I love the ones that look really fancy. But yeah. So thanks for joining along, everyone. I hope you want to make this.
Hello. Thank you so much, Bethany. That was really wonderful. That looks very delicious. I'm getting hungry just like you are. So I just posted the links to your Instagram account and your website for Imperfectly Plated, where everyone can find more of your work. And then next week is the Food Connection's final cooking demo of the summer of 2020. And we will be having Chef Chris Kane of Daughter's Southern Food Truck. And we are all very excited for that. So thank you so much to Bethany. And please tune in next week. And thank you all for being here this morning.
Thank you, guys. Bye.